Welcome to the INFOWARS Nightly News. It is Friday, May 2nd, 2014, and I'm Leanne McAdoo. Here's what's coming up tonight.
Tonight, the White House says it's conspiracy theory to question the official story of Benghazi. Then, how the United States increased Afghan opium production. And why Wall Street killed Peaches Geldof. That's next on the INFOWARS Nightly News.
I'm never going to commit suicide. Never, 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 never.
The House Oversight Committee Chairman Darrell Issa has issued a subpoena for the Secretary of State John Kerry. He wants him to come before a committee on May 21st to talk about Benghazi. He wants him to testify. And now this comes in the wake of those smoking gun emails that show the White House officials worked to craft that narrative. The attack was part of a YouTube video protest, and it did not indicate a broader failure of policy. Now, Issa said in a letter to Kerry, compliance with the subpoena for documents is not a game. Because your department is failing to meet its legal obligations, I'm issuing a new subpoena to compel you to appear before the committee to answer questions about your agency's response to the congressional investigation of the Benghazi attack. So here he goes again, trying to use stronger words to compel them to comply with the inquest to find out what happened with Benghazi. But apparently, what does he just not know how this administration works? They do what they want to do. The Department of Justice is, Eric Holder is still in contempt of Congress for failing to bring forth documents on Fast and Furious.
You don't want to go there, okay?
I don't want to go there?
No.
These emails directly link the White House to Susan Rice's false talking points on Benghazi. Yet they say that they withheld these emails because they had nothing to do with Benghazi. They were just giving her talking points on the general situation going on with the protests going on worldwide. Now, Rand Paul says it's clear that the White House was just more focused on spinning the details of the attack rather than the truth. Paul said the email read like a script from a Hollywood producer. He said it's what a producer would do when saying, what do you want the general feeling to be from this? And the feeling needs to be that this is not terrorism. But now the White House has to backtrack and spin their spin. And how are they going to do that? By gaslighting. They say, what are you talking about? You wanted the emails on Benghazi. These aren't those emails. What emails are you talking about? These are just, they're not a smoking gun. This is an email that says there's a bigger cover-up going on. What are you talking about? It's not another Obama administration scandal. And Jay Carney even went so far as to say it's a conspiracy theory looking for a conspiracy. He said these so-called smoking gun emails had nothing to do with Benghazi. And then he tries to throw the State Department under the bus.
You would have to ask the State Department about their process for responding to FOIA requests. Again, you can just read it and then decide for yourself. As many people have now said and written, like this is a conspiracy theory in search of a conspiracy.
The conservative group comes in and says, we want Benghazi documents. The administration says, this is not a Benghazi document, so we're not turning it over, right?
Again, I don't, like this is a State Department FOIA request response.
But again, we all know how this administration responds to those requests. Apparently now Congress is going to have to get all of their information from outside sources like Judicial Watch, who files FOIA requests. So then they roll in former National Security Council spokesman Tommy Vietor. He is asked as well about the talking points and his role that he played in changing them. Fox News asked him about adding a line that the administration was warned the day before the attacks of social media reports calling for demonstrations. This was in order to bolster this false idea the attack was the spontaneous result of a riot against the video. Well, Vietor affirmed this, but then when Fox News asked him if he'd changed the word attacks to demonstrations, he got amnesia.
Did you also change attacks to demonstrations in the talking points?
Maybe. I don't really remember.
You don't remember?
Dude, this was like 2 years ago. We're still talking about the most mundane
it is the
process
thing that everybody is talking about.
We're talking about the process of editing talking points. That's what bureaucrats do all day long.
So apparently Tommy is who the White House rolls out when they want to just show that they're hip with the kids. And that dude, it was like so 2 years ago, because then he tweeted out that Fox News must have had him on the show to talk about a Throwback Thursday. Now, you know, kind of like Hillary Clinton. What does it matter? Why does it matter? Why are we talking about Benghazi? But that's not all he had to say. He said, I bet you every single person in that White House wished that email had been released earlier. I wish it too, because it tells us nothing new. It tells us that what we said privately was what we said publicly, because that is what we thought had occurred. But that is false. That is false. We are just faced with a lot of false news coming out of the White House right now. Rep. Jason Chaffetz out of Utah entered a new email into testimony yesterday. He entered it with the House Oversight Committee. This email reveals that the State Department, including Clinton aides, knew that Benghazi was a terror attack in the immediate aftermath. This email was sent on September 12, 2012 at 12:46 p.m., just hours after the Benghazi attack took place, and 2 days before that email was sent out by Benjamin Rhodes.
There's a paragraph in here that I think is pertinent to our discussions today. It's referencing the Libyan ambassador. When he said his government suspected that former Gaddafi regime elements carried out the attacks, I told him that the group that conducted the attacks, Ansar al-Sharia, is affiliated with Islamic extremists, end quote. This coming from the State Department going to Victoria Nuland, Patrick Kennedy, Cheryl Mills, Secretary Clinton's chief of staff. I'd like to enter this into the record, which has not been out there in the public in the past.
Now, Chaffetz said that that was an unclassified email that just hadn't yet been entered into the public record. It hasn't been bought for public review. It just underscores, again, the fact that the White House knew that this was a terror attack. Clinton aides knew, and they wanted to downplay it so it wouldn't draw attention to failed policy. That's their words. And we think it's something even greater than that. This is Paul Joseph Watson's article up on INFOWARS today. Why the White House is desperate to bury Benghazi. The cover-up is about shielding details of arms smuggling to terrorists in Syria. The fact is, an annex near the U.S. Embassy was being used by the CIA to transfer surface-to-air missiles to terrorists in Syria. Now, in May of last year, Rand Paul was one of the first to speculate that the truth behind Benghazi was linked to an illicit arms smuggling program. He told CNN that I've actually always suspected that, although I have no evidence, that maybe we were facilitating arms leaving Libya, going through Turkey into Syria. And he added that he never quite understood the cover-up, if it was intentional or incompetence. Now, at the same time, it emerged that the U.S. State Department had hired an al-Qaeda offshoot organization to defend the Benghazi mission months before the attack. And then months later, Senator Paul was vindicated when it emerged that the CIA had been subjecting its CIA operatives who were on the ground during the attack to mandatory monthly polygraphs in order to prevent them from talking to Congress or the media about a program that revolved around secretly helping to move surface-to-air missiles out of Libya, through Turkey, and into the hands of Syrian rebels. And that was reported by CNN. Now, the real truth behind Benghazi is likely to reveal that the Obama administration knowingly and deliberately provided surface-to-air missiles and other weapons to the most bloodthirsty al-Qaeda jihadists in Syria. So, if a proper investigation into Benghazi was to come about and we were able to get concrete evidence of this happening, Obama would be impeached, members of his administration would be jailed. This is far beyond the articles of impeachment that took down Nixon. And this is just one of the cover-ups that the White House really just wants to sweep under the rug and doesn't want the American people to get to the bottom of. And I'm not talking about them smuggling weapons and Fast and Furious and all that. I'm talking about their hand in the drug trade. Now, Now, specifically opium production out of Afghanistan, it's at an all-time high, and officials are saying that it's because of troop withdrawal. Now, American taxpayers have spent $7.5 billion over the past 12 years on counter-narcotics efforts inside Afghanistan. But according to a Special Inspector General report, since 2008, these so-called eradication efforts have affected, on average, less than 4% of the annual national poppy crop. So, as we've shown you before, the troops are actually there protecting the opium farmers. And officials, they say, you know, not to worry, heroin from Afghanistan's opium may never reach the U.S. because those supplies typically come from South America, and they would know. But this particular opium, they're worried because it goes to enrich the Taliban and al-Qaeda. And so now they're using their buzzwords. It's not just about drug trafficking. They say it's about national security. And so counter-narcotics efforts must be increased, not decreased. But we did just learn that there was only a 4% success rate in counter-narcotics programs. Basically, they just want our tax dollars to go pay for them to wipe out their competition. And that's why I kind of find it really funny, albeit tragic, when you see headlines about Peaches Geldof and how now the authorities say she likely died from a heroin incident. I don't know if it was an OD, but heroin definitely played a part in her death. And now they're looking for the killers. They're looking for the dealers that supplied her with this heroin. But if that's what you're really after, cut the head off the snake. Am I right? Most heroin is produced in Afghanistan, which is a country that is occupied by the U.S. military. In 2009, Ethan Huff wrote, "The U.S. military has been specifically tasked with guarding Afghan poppy fields from which opium is derived in order to protect this multi-billion-dollar industry that enriches Wall Street, the CIA, MI6, and various other groups that profit big time from this illicit drug trade scheme." That same year, we reported on the brother of Afghan President Hamid Karzai. He was the kingpin of the country's booming opium trade. Now, Karzai was also on the CIA payroll, and that was according to a story that was published by the New York Times. And here's a clip of Geraldo. It's kind of hard to find this clip on YouTube, but of course we have it archived. This is where a soldier is explaining to him his duties there in Afghanistan.
U.S. soldiers greet farmers.
Can you show me which poppy field is yours?
They commiserate with farmers having a bad harvest.
Tell him I'm very sorry for his field this year, and hopefully he has a better harvest next year.
And in one case, they even paid a farmer $1,000 after U.S. and Afghan special forces burned his crop.
It goes on and on. There is an abundance of evidence that the U.S. government is involved in the international drug trade. You can go to the article on INFOWARS.com. There it digs deep. Much of the information is actually published in the Congressional Record, but Kurt Nimmo does a really good job of breaking it down. But really, if you want to find Peaches Geldof's murder, just head to Langley, Virginia. You'll probably find the murderer there. Now, coming up, we have a very special report. Alex Jones, he decided that he is going to dole out a Baghdad Bob Award for the biggest political liar of the last 20 years. It was pretty hilarious. That happened on today's show. And then Jakari Jackson, he asks the question, who really should have the right to bear arms? All that and more is coming up right after this.